There he is, joining me at this time, indie pro wrestling manager in the Pacific Northwest. He goes by the name of Pa Moonshine, and he is joining me right now. It's a pretty cool name, by the way. What's going on, Pa?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I want to thank you so much for joining me, uh, or in your case, the early afternoon in the West Coast. I truly appreciate it, man.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, the first question is I want to ask you about your name, Pa Moonshine. The moonshine part, very interesting. Uh, so how did you end up being called Pa Moonshine? Was it yours idea, or was it the promoter's idea? Like, how did that name came about?
It was my idea. JB Moonshine is my son, and he's a professional wrestler here in the Northwest. And later on, LB Moonshine joined us. My other son, his half brother, and he grew up in New York, and my son grew up in the mountains, and I was uh, just I supported him all his careers. He's been wrestling for like 12 years, and I've been before I became his manager, I was a truck driver, and I retired from that, and so I was a fan, and I just kept building up my character, but and then finally I put on a sports jacket with Pa Moonshine on there, and then one day I had matching hats made for us, KB Moonshine and Pa Moonshine, and when he came out to the ring, I stopped him and gave it to him, and the next week the promoter told JB to bring me in the back. I've been his manager ever since.
Interesting, man. Definitely interesting. Um,
And since I'm his biological father, we did, I went by Paul Moonshine, and the promoter and everybody thought that it stuck because of there's been, to our recollection, has never been a manager that was actually the father of the wrestler.
so let me ask you this: what do you like the most of being a manager? Like, you go in, you support your wrestler or wrestlers. You you have a nice view with the in ring action, and you interact with the fans, whether it's a heel or a babyface. What do you like the most of being a manager for in front
I
of a
like
live audience?
I like being able to go out to the ring and like I said, support the wrestlers, support my son, support both my boys. Uh, they're sometimes they wrestle as singles and sometimes they wrestle as tag teams, and and we have our own music, and when we go out, normally even if it's single wrestlers, or single match, the boys come out together, and they dance around, and stuff like, because we're hillbillies, they dance around and stuff, and the fans really like what we do.
Who do you consider as your biggest influence as far as managers is concerned? Like, do you see some Jimmy
I
Hart in you, or Paul Bear, or Bobby the Brain Heating? Like, who do you consider as a huge influence?
I'd have to probably say Jimmy Hart. I I don't come out right now with a megaphone, but I was coming out with a megaphone, and uh, uh, now it's kind of I guess you would say between Jimmy Hart and Freddie Blessing, because now I can, instead of a megaphone, now I come out with a walking stick.
Hmm. That's Not Freddie Hart, Freddie Blassie did that, and Jimmy Hart had the megaphone. So I just thought Will Sim as being my biggest influence. back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, it seemed like wrestling, well, mostly WWE for that matter, would usually have those few managers. I'll even put Paul Bear in there, like in the 90s up into the 2000s, and nowadays, if you watch TV, on wrestling on TV, it's like you don't see a lot of managers. When I looked around, let's see, Ring of Honor, they have Truth Martini. That's the only notable person I know. For Impact Wrestling, I can't even think of. I don't think they have a single manager in their roster. And then I look at WWE. The only person I think of the top of my head is Lana, and it feels like that manager, or Paul Heyman. I almost forgot about him. Paul Heyman and Lana are the only managers I can think of, and
Right.
it feels like wrestling nowadays has made that manager role an afterthought. You being a manager and a fan watching on TV, and you don't see much involvement with the manager. What is your take on some of these pro companies kind of giving the manager cat role of putting them to the back burner, if you will?
Um, I'm not really understanding the question. Uh, uh, as far as yeah, you're right. There's not many managers around anymore. Most of them have retired or whatever the case may be. But I think, as far as uh, uh, I go, I'm the only uh, 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 right now in BCW. I'm the only manager there, and there's not really any managers anywhere. In WCWC, there's Tubbs, and like you said, Ring of Honor is Martinez. Uh, there's just not all that many managers around
I guess it feels like maybe it's not a high priority like it was back in this back in the old school, if you will. It just feels like, well, maybe they focusing more on the in-ring competitors rather than those outside, unless you're a commentator. Uh, I guess.
here. I think if managers do bring something to the table. My boys are getting more recognition since I became a manager. JB has been wrestling longer than LB has, and JB he's come a long ways in the business, and uh, we we're we started traveling. We uh, go up to Roseburg. I mean, not Roseburg, Spokane, July 12th, and we have a big huge match up there. It's not with LB. It's with Donovan Etzel. JV's team up with Donovan Etzel for the tag team championship up there on July 12th. And their biggest wrestling event of the year called Wrestle Rave, and it's kind of like a WrestleMania. And with him teaming up with Donovan Etzel, we're known as because Donovan Etzel is known as Hollywood Donovan Etzel. We're known as the Hollywood Moonshiners.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question as far as you have any upcoming events, upcoming appearances, and you already answered it fresh out the gate. So,
Oh,
there you go in that regard. Um, let's talk about your group of talent that you work with, and for those that may not be familiar with them, why don't you go ahead talk about the group or the team or your clientele, your group, your peoples that you walk to the ring alongside with. Talk about what they bring to the table, and why should people keep a close eye of them, especially with your involvement in their careers.
it's BCW. We call it wrestling, and we're also affiliated with NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, it's, we are there every Sunday night at the Eagles Club. They're on Exeter and Lombard every Sunday at 6 p.m. Have a lot of talent there, some great talent there. So we have every once in a while we bring in somebody that hasn't been around for a long time. Uh, uh, Cowboy Tex Thompson, he's one of the owners, and we got a great bunch of people that we work with, and it happens every Sunday night.
For everyone, please check out Pa Moonshine and his crew coming to a city near you in the Pacific Northwest areas. By any means necessary, please support your local indie pro wrestling companies. They do a very good job bringing the best in the city, in the state, and it's indie wrestling is and always will be the backbone of wrestling in general. It's where you can see that next potential big star, and he or she could be right in your neck of the woods. You never know who that person is, but don't just support them just because of an emerging star. Support them from the opening match to the main event. Give them all you got as a audience, and just show your appreciation. Cheer for your favorites, boo for those that you don't like, but just show your support to these indie companies. They do a fantastic job to bring the best in entertainment, and the prices are pretty good compared to those major companies. I'm just saying, 7, 8, 9, $10 to be exact. You can't beat that, especially on a weekend. Bring your family along, spread the word. It's up to us fans to keep indie wrestling up and running, keep these companies up and running for sure. Um, my last question for you, Pa, is this: if you had a chance, if you can have that dream, you, I'm talking anyone that has competed in a major company that you have had a chance to work with. It could be young or old, dead or alive, a tag team or a single competitor from WWE, WCW, ECW, TNA, Ring of Honor. If you had a chance to work with one person or a tag team from a major company, who would it be?
I'd have to say Rob Van Dam. I like his athleticism and he just all around good athlete, and yeah, it would have to be Rob Van Dam.
Rob Van Dam. That's a very good choice, considering I've followed most of his career, um, and I don't ever recall him having a manager for most of his career, or except for the time he was with Ricardo Rodriguez after the fallout between he and Del Rio, who's now known as Alberto El Patron of Ring of Honor. But RVD, he was quite the athlete. He was like a highlight reel waiting to happen, and he's a joy to watch, for sure. Well, Pa Moonshine, I want to once again, sir, thank you so much for being on the show and just showing that managers still have a place for not just indie wrestling, but wrestling in general. Because it feels like there's been a decline of managers for the last several years, if not longer. And it's good to see people like you showing that there's still time for a manager to make a name for himself. And I want to wish you and your clientele continued success moving forward. Thank you for your time, and enjoy your holiday weekend, 4th of July, man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and you have a great 4th of July also.
Will do, sir. You take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was Pa Moonshine joining me here.